Dear friends, this right here is love. Not that we loved God, but still he gave his son just to save us, and sacrifice for us. And since God loved us, then we also ought to love one another. And if God is love, whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. So, and if you don't know love and you don't know God, let it change who we are.
Yo, what's up, 910? We back on the pod. 2023, the first official one. We took a hard break for the holiday season. The last one was with Paige, and she was feeling spicy, and we had a good time. So you should go back and watch that one from December if you haven't seen that one. But we're jumping into a brand new series we started this weekend called Awake, and it's fire. T. Ferrari on the intro video.
So good to hear his voice.
So good. Yeah, just crazy season over the last couple of years, and to see him finish his journey so well, like freaking heart-wrenching, but also just like so encouraging to see him have like such amazing hope and trust in Jesus. So faithful all the way to the end. So
devotion, if you will.
Honestly, so it's pretty special to have him a part of this intro, and it's a recycled video. We've used it before in 910 back in the day, but I was like, we got to run it back one more time.
Yeah, we only got these kids every 2 years.
We got to run it back one more time.
They don't know what they don't know.
And that awake, that term comes from Ephesians chapter 5, actually, where Paul says, and we're going to jump into this here in a little bit, but he says, "Awake, O sleeper, and rise from the dead." And it's this play on words, right? That if you are alive in Christ and you're walking in the light, then you should look like it, right? So there's this call to the believer to wake up out of your slumber, to not look like the world around you. And he uses the imagery of light and darkness. He uses the imagery of drunkenness versus filled with the Spirit. And he's like, there's this call in the middle of it to like wake up, right? Which is so cool, which we're both trying to do on this Monday morning.
Cheers.
Wake up.
To the church.
To the church, Pellegrino. Okay. Cool. Well, I have a couple of quick questions for you, speaking of the morning, and then we're going to jump into this. What's like Charline Golnick's go-to morning routine?
Oh, go-to morning. Well, some mornings are different. Like Mondays, I look forward to. I've been doing this group with my friends for probably the past, since the beginning of last summer. And we meet, and our goal for 2023 is to actually pray more in our prayer group. But we kind of just gather at like 7 a.m. at Revolution Roasters. Shout out.
Shout out to
maybe
Revs.
they'll sponsor our next event. But so that's like a typical morning there. But it really depends. I like getting my body moving. It's like kind of give or take on, like, do I spend a longer time sitting in the Word? Love that. Make myself a good matcha or a latte, sit on the couch. And then other times, like, shame-free, I'm like, God and me need to move. And so I like going for walks. I like going for runs. Sometimes I do like a little Peloton Pilates class. Really just depends. But I've been focusing like my mentality, especially since being sick in most of 2023, slowing down has been really the rhythm of my mornings. So I like waking up really early and having a longer time to enjoy my morning versus rushing. So Chase knows when I'm in a rush. He's like, you had all morning and then you spend the last 10 minutes getting ready to go somewhere. So I've been working on just slowing down and having like the mindfulness of walking in the Spirit be like part of my morning.
That's cool. I've been like fighting to get out of bed recently because Piper wakes up usually around
cold,
like
also
7-ish, like 7:30, and I want to have like an hour before she gets up. So I've been trying to do my best. Like sometimes set my alarm for like 5:30 and then fight snooze till like 5:50. And then get out of bed.
The pre-6 a.m.ers, you guys are built different.
I just love waking up and watching the sunrise.
Yes.
I know that's weird, okay? But there's something about like every time I do it, it's worth it.
Totally.
And anytime I sleep in till like 7:15, which LOL that's sleeping in. But
I feel that.
If I sleep till then and wake up and then Piper wakes up, I'm like,
I feel like you missed out on this whole opportunity to just
I need
enjoy
that hour.
You know, when you're camping, my favorite thing when camping is being awake before everybody else is awake, and you can kind of still smell the smoke on the campfire that's like in the dewy air, and maybe the sun's up or not yet, and it's freezing cold. Like, There's something special about being up when
There
the rest
is.
of the world isn't really up.
There is. It just is. I have this rocking chair in my living room. Shout out to Sean Woolsey. And it's like my spot. Like I just turn that thing
Nestle
around,
up, you got
turn
your
the fire
cozies.
on, make a nice cup of coffee, and just sit for an hour.
Nice. I turn on my fake fire on the TV since we don't have a fireplace. I'm
There
like,
you go.
pretend.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Put a heater, like an electric heater on.
Yes, absolutely.
That's nice.
Except
That's nice.
electric bills lately,
Right.
we're all expensive.
Solar.
Electric and gas.
Shout out to solar.
True.
So many shout outs. Y'all have
Shout
solar.
out. Yeah, we do. But it doesn't cover heating.
I think it does.
Well, it does, but it's lately, the bills are still pretty, SDG&E, shout out to you.
The bills
Get
are
it
bills.
together.
The bills are bills. Yeah. When eggs cost $9
Yeah.
a dozen,
It's San Diego. Chase last night made the comment. He's like, we pay too
tough.
much in tax dollars for it to be this cold.
That's
Like, come on,
true.
California, get it together.
It's true. If we're gonna be cold, we might as well live in like Idaho or something.
Exactly.
But, okay. I wanna ask this question. We talked about this all weekend. We talked about 3 things, right? It's on your fill in the blank sheet online. If you watch the sermon, in that fill in the blank sheet, we pointed out 3 things from Ephesians 5 because this is like the lens that we want to look through for this entire series. Which, by the way, this was the first weekend we did our 3 unique service opportunities.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Which was kind of fun, right? So
Tell 'em.
9:10 now is split between Saturday night, 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and all 3 are different. So
Whoa, you could come to all 3 and experience something
for real,
Yeah.
you really could.
Yeah.
And this is we've never done this before.
never before.
So
We're
historically,
getting saucy in 2023.
saucy. Historically, they're all 3 kind of replications of each other in some way, shape, or form. And so the Saturday night is our 9:10 plus, 9:10 plus. And we sit down with the Bible, we're walking through 1 Corinthians, and we just kind of chop it up.
Yeah.
Ask
read it.
questions, circle stuff, and it's always a rad discussion. It's like the last 2 weeks in 1 Corinthians have been really cool. And then our 9 a.m. is kind of like our OG, preach a sermon,
Yeah.
worship, pretty normal service.
You know what to expect at a 9
know what to expect. And then our brand new one is called 11:22
Whoa, why?
because it starts at
11:22.
11:22. Yeah, it's fun. It's yesterday. It's like the type of service where we want to ask 9th and 10th graders questions. We want to ask you guys questions, leaders. If you come to it, it's a fun, like, I'll set up an idea, or you'll this weekend set up an idea, and then be like, hey, turn to 3 or 4 people around you.
Well, think, pair, share action.
Yeah. Whoa. Nice.
It's like you're a teacher.
Pair, share. That's good. And I don't know why my mind went to like pairs.
Yeah, different. PAIR.
Yeah, it's different, but
We might bring pairs. Who knows?
yeah, we should bring pairs. 9:10 plus will always have food. That's a new
True.
addition.
Yeah.
I actually
always.
just got that officially approved. So
Sick.
we'll have some food there hanging out, and then 11:22 is like ask a question, share with the people around you, and then it's like, hey, what stood out, and then go back and ask a question. It's kind of like a very interactive.
Yeah.
I explained it's like not as interactive as 9:10 plus, but it's not as like
Sit and
speech, listen, sermon-y as in the 9 a.m. It's the Prius.
Yeah.
It's the Prius of services. But I'm pretty pumped on it. It's exciting. So yesterday
Come and check them out.
we talked about this concept of fruitless deeds of darkness, right? And that's like such an intense way to say it.
Right.
But we use the analogy of like if you've ever tried to garden before or like grow something at 215 Knoll.
Yeah, I totally have.
I tried to plant a lemon tree back in the day, and the thing was freaking fruitless.
Yeah,
And it's frustrating.
it is.
And yet
Growing
he
takes time.
kind of calls us out. And he says, for once you were darkness in Ephesians 5, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light. He says, find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, rather expose them. But I think the fruitless deeds of darkness, they kind of become regular patterns of life pretty easily if we don't like recognize them as fruitless,
Totally.
right? And it was fun to even chat with our students yesterday about this, but I'm curious what stands out to you there when you think about this like juxtaposition between live as children of the light and fruitless deeds of darkness. Like why do you think Paul right before Wake Up O Sleeper points these two things out?
Well, I feel like one of them, this is the first thought that comes to my head. Might be totally wrong, but I feel like growing up in the church, I can sometimes hear the like live as children of light. If I lose sight of what the gospel is and who Jesus is, I feel like I have to work hard in order to become a children of light. And then like the fruitless deeds of darkness is just like around me and I'm like kind of living in it. But if we have the lens of like, I'm forgiven, I'm enough, and like I don't have to earn God's love, like I'm invited into the identity of like, I am a children of light. So I would run from things that would like hinder me, like thus like the fruitless deeds of darkness. But that saying does sound really like hyper spiritual, and even, like processing it. Here's just an example. I view it as like this morning, my friends and I were all talking about ways that we want to like practically live the life that we know we want to live, but we're being sucked into things that we think we're above. Like, I don't think I'm as addicted to my phone as Gen Z. Like, no hate on Gen Z, but it's easy to be like, oh, I'm an adult. I can control my consumption of things. But at the end of the day, if I'm honest with myself, my phone is a distraction. And so we're all like, let's delete our Instagram and we'll check in a week and see like how our week goes. And it's not because we think we have to like earn, in this case, like our identity as like children of light better. It's like, I just want to live as, I want to walk fully in that identity of a child of light. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it means removing things that are causing fruitlessness.
Yeah, it's so good. I think there's we talked about this at the end of the sermon yesterday, but the concept of like be filled with the Spirit, like the term there in Greek is like being filled. Mm-hmm. And it's the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, really. Is like the Old Testament, there was a physical, tangible law, mm-hmm. and we, in our flesh, physically, tangibly obeyed that law. And then the kind of the goal of the law was to prove you can't, mm-hmm. right? Like that you cannot follow this to a T. And so there was this introduction of a sacrificial system, which the sacrificial system like reminded us of our sin and then pointed to a greater sacrifice. It was this like continual reminder that you physically can't. So along comes Jesus and he says, I did not come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill the law. Mm-hmm. And then he says, I'm leaving you with the Spirit. I'm giving you this Spirit. And then so when Paul says things like this, like being filled, it puts us like our physical, tangible posture now is not like, okay, I need to try to physically, tangibly obey the law. Mm-hmm. Our physical, tangible posture is like openness.
Yeah. Am I making weird. Like space in my life? Or we were using the word margin this morning. Like right. How much margin do I have in my life to allow for the Spirit to move?
Right.
Or am I like taking the reins so much that I'm like not necessarily scheduling my life out to a T, because I wouldn't say I'm like that type A, but how often do I go from one thing to the next without room for like, God, what do you have for me today? Right. Like, what do you want me to say? How can I walk more in step with your character? But instead, I get so used to just, like, doing the day-to-day things. Yeah. Even maybe it's something, like, maybe God needs to wake me up in my morning routine, that I'm doing something that is so easily habitual. Yeah. And he's like, what if you just, like, sat and truly did nothing instead of, like, grabbing something or, you know, moving and, like...
Yeah. It's such a fascinating concept. Like, I was talking to my mom about this yesterday, and heyo, Elizabeth Payne, the wisest woman ever, and we were talking about how like it actually probably doesn't look that different, mm-hmm. right? You walking as a child of the light have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, and like there's two ways to do that. One is kind of what you were talking about, like trying to manufacture child of lightness. Mm-hmm. I gotta read my Bible, I gotta pray, I gotta do all these things. And then the other one is like the posture of openness, creating margin, going like, okay, I'm going to make room, and then God, I need you to move, because only your Spirit can do these things, right? That's like what we were talking about in 1 Corinthians 2, that the things of the Spirit are only make sense to people who have the Spirit, mm-hmm. and like they delve the depths of God's mm-hmm. Spirit because you have His Spirit, and you're like, wait, what? What is all this like Spirit lingo? But the difference between those things, like if I just looked at you from the outside and I was like, oh, she's like reading her Bible, she's part of this prayer group, all this mm-hmm. stuff, like that could be you creating margin and space for the Spirit to move. But it could also be you going,
could be faking it till you
I gotta
make
do
it.
All these things. Yeah. I gotta,
mm-hmm.
I gotta, and that's like spiritually exhausting.
Totally.
So it's a nuance, but it makes all the difference in the world.
It's a heart posture
like
switch.
Inside mm-hmm. looking out,
mm-hmm.
there is no exhaustion from creating space for the Spirit to move, because you know it's not you. Mm-hmm. You know it's not like on you to make that difference. And I think there's so much freedom in that, of the ability to go like, all right, God, here I am. I'm open to you. I'm going to be being filled, right? It's like, I think it was Jim Wilder that said, don't do spiritual disciplines. Become the type of person that does spiritual disciplines. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's the same
sense.
thing. But it really does make a lot of sense if you step back. It's like, no, spiritual disciplines in and of themselves are pretty meaningless. It's like they are the practice of creating margin, of making room, of creating space so that the Spirit of God can come in and move.
And we have to remember, what does God value? Like, he values our heart in the sacrifice, not the sacrifice itself. He's like, you could give me 3 hours a day and have it be totally selfish, but like, I see your heart. And how good, like scary, but refreshing that God knows our heart and our posture going into it, which frees us up then on the days when we're not feeling it, but we desire it, we go to it. And we're not going to always like walk away from a spiritual discipline, maybe feeling filled, but God knows like our heart posture in it of like, Jesus, I want to be like devoted to you in this, which is cool.
So good. I don't know why my mind just jumped to the song. You delight in showing mercy.
Yeah, keep going.
And mercy triumphs over. I've been really into singing into microphones lately. Hunter, I'm coming for your job, bro.
We could just
for you.
do a weekend where we like cycle. Like all of us do.
All of us.
New
You do tech.
type. I'll do tech. Oh,
I'll
gosh,
lead
Charline,
worship. Hunter preaches. And Braden runs facilities. I don't know. I couldn't think of another job. Braden stands up front looking good. That's cool. Okay, well, we're kind of. I have 2 more fun questions for you, but we're wrapping up our Ephesians conversation. I'm pumped for this series. I think it's going to be a good one. My last 2 questions. One of them's silly, and one of them's tradition. Okay. The silly one is, if you had a billboard, and if you made it this far in the podcast, then you get to hear the answer to this question. If you had a billboard, blank billboard, that I paid for, said, hey, I have this billboard space. It's on the 5 South. Okay. Lots of traffic.
Right. Head towards Encinitas.
What are you putting on that billboard?
Oh, foof.
Foof.
I wish I had like a really funny. I feel like
it can't be like John 3:16.
No. Okay. I think I would just put like, hey, you look good today. Like, sometimes we all need a little more encouragement. And if it's like a Tuesday morning and you're on the grind commuting down to San Diego, bless your heart. Hey, you're doing fine. You look good.
That's like, it. You're doing fine.
You look good.
You look good. I like it.
Just, you're doing fine. Like, you are doing fine. Period. You look good today. Period. Simple.
Nice.
They could probably be better, but
that's good. Off the cuff. Okay. And then last but not least, we always end the podcast with a little bit of dating advice.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of hot takes at camp.
We did.
Us leaders hung out a little bit too long for this old soul. But it was so fun. It was so fun. And there was a lot of hot takes.
Do you have a hot take?
No, I don't have a hot take.
Nervous.
But I want to... One of the things that came out of that conversation that I want to double down on, I don't know if we've talked about this on the dating podcast before, or the dating podcast, the NineTen podcast,
the NineTen podcast
ends
that
with dating advice.
Yes.
Maybe we've talked about it before, but I just love, I'm going to double down on keep it light and fluffy.
Okay.
That's it.
My answer.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, keep it light and fluffy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the dating advice. Keep it light and fluffy.
Oh, the dating advice. Oh, got
Keep it light and fluffy.
Yeah.
I think
you should have fun.
Yes.
It doesn't always have to be cry your heart out emotional moments, because that's a whole
or
emotional
planning the future, talking
yeah.
about what you're going to do this summer.
Like, those things fall into place.
Give it time.
Are we talking to our young adult leaders, or are we talking to
both
our high school students?
Anyone. Keep it light and fluffy. If you keep it light and fluffy and break up in 4 months, you're chilling.
True. But not too light and fluffy in the sense that you cross too many boundaries.
Well, I'm not talking about light and fluffy like, yeah, let's make out. I'm talking about like light and fluffy, like
have fun.
Let's just hang out. Let's have a good time. Let's
and
go get ice
cream. They don't own you and you don't own them, in the sense, like, have the freedom to spend time with other people.
Right.
When it's light and fluffy, you're not always like worried about when you're going to see them next, because you're like, I'll get my time with them when I get my time with them.
It's not
like,
it is.
We need to see each other 3 times a week.
Date like cotton candy.
That's a great analogy.
Cotton candy dating.
Yeah.
That's going to be a chapter in my book someday.
Cotton candy dating. Yeah.
Look out for my book.
And you could just rip a piece off and it flows in the wind and it's totally fine.
Well, now it sounds like you could just be a player. It is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
I date
Like,
her, and I date her,
no,
and
no,
she's
no.
sweet and disappears in my mouth. That's weird. Well, you know, cotton candy's like...
Yes, I knew.
Anyways,
I knew what you were saying.
strange. All right, well,
That's all. Light
love you
fluffy.
guys. Keep it light and fluffy.
Yeah, we love y'all.
Stay awake. We outie.